Attention, please. The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go. Bass in your face. Bass in your face.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Uncommon Sense with Jose Negron. Or watching this channel for the first time, the reason why it is called Uncommon Sense because here on this platform, we discuss everyday issues where we try to find logical solutions, but not everyone uses logic. And I see that Good evening, Diti Juju. Thank you very much for stopping by. And before I forget, let me state that my dear friend Diti Juju has her own YouTube channel where she talks a lot of interesting topics, particularly topics regarding current events and other interesting matters. So I'm going to ask that you show some love and check out her channel and support and subscribe. Thank you very much for stopping by. For the benefit of those of you who are not familiar with the channel or watching this channel for the first time, the reason why it is called Uncommon Sense because here on this platform, we discuss everyday issues where we try to find logical solutions, but not everyone uses logic. So that reason is called Uncommon Sense. I also have another YouTube channel called Latina Diaspora where I discuss issues pertaining to Latinos in the United States. The link to the channel is in the description. You are quite welcome, my dear. You're quite welcome indeed. I just want to let everybody know that I'm currently live on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. And also the subscriber mode has been enabled. Meaning, if you're not a subscriber and if you wish to enter a comment in the chat, you need to subscribe to the channel. I'd like to give a huge shout out to all those who've already subscribed to the channel, whether you've been a supporter from the very beginning or just recently joined. I really appreciate your love and continued support. I also want to give a huge shout out to all those who follow me on social media, as well as those who allow me to enter into your devices, and those who watch from the clouds, even the haters. So what I'm going to ask you to do, if you have not done so, I'm going to ask you to please subscribe, like, and set the bell notifications to all. So therefore, whenever I do produce content, you will have the opportunity to catch it live or catch it on the playback. As you can see by the thumbnail tonight, the topic will be, what is accountability? So what I'm going to do is first I'm going to define it, what it is, and what does it actually mean. Okay, because we're living in a day and age where for some people, accountability is like kryptonite. And unfortunately, there's some people who have a big issue taking accountability for their actions. Now, I have a saying, which is not in good, proper English, but I think is appropriate for tonight's topic. When you mess up, fess up. In other words, when you make a mistake or when you err and judge, own it and take accountability, and also take the consequences that goes along with the action or action that you've taken. So before we get into the main topic, we're gonna have another episode of In My Words. Now, this Sunday, our commander in chief, or some people want to say lunatic in chief, actually created, uploaded a meme, which he, and Lord forgive me for saying this, that he compared himself to Jesus Christ as him being the one that heals. Now, my question, and this is particularly labeled to all the mega supporters, the mega sheep group, all those that are still saying that Trump is the greatest thing since sliced bread. Why are you still following this idiot? Okay, here's a person that created a meme, which he compares up to Jesus, like he's the new Jesus. To the to the chagrin of the current president, we have one Jesus Christ, okay, which he lives in the hearts and minds of all those who has accepted his lordship. I don't think Jesus would be happy with someone trying to upload a meme and trying to compare, be like the next Jesus. And then the image was immediately taken down. And then his explanation was, oh, it's just meant to be comical, for comical relief, talking about that he's a great healer. We're talking about the same person that's filed bankruptcies multiple times with casinos, which is basically places where people go and basically they throw their money away to try to gamble to get more money. How do you file for bankruptcy with casinos? Okay, number one. Number two, have people have forgotten what happened on the first time Trump was president? And the fact that he mishandled the COVID-19 pandemic, and talking about, well, the pandemic will be over by Easter of the same year. And of course, this was the same person that was encouraging people infected with COVID-19 to consume bleach. Not to mention the fact that he was impeached not once, but twice. But only because of the weak, spineless Republican Party has he not been convicted. Not to mention the fact, on a personal matter, he's been married 3 times, of which the marriages end due to allegations of infidelity. So this person is not portraying Jesus in any way, shape, or form. Now, it does not mean that he cannot repent and seek God's forgiveness and get himself right with God before he dies, which, considering his health, he can die in any moment because the man is approaching 80 years old. I would not want to be in his shoes on Judgment Day if he does not repent. And to be perfectly honest, considering all the everything that he has mishandled, the ones are the biggest fools are the ones that still support him. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying Kamala Harris was a big improvement. I mean, she was not that much of an improvement, considering how she handled the migrant crisis 6 years ago. And basically, she didn't do a very good job campaigning. Now, people say she had a short period of time, but let's just say she was a bad candidate and just leave it at that. And if it wasn't for the vice president being spineless and invoking the 25th Amendment, we're stuck with this person in the White House until January 20 of 2020 of 2029, or when this person does unfortunately meet his demise. Now, the other thing I want to talk about, and this is going from the silly to the insane. Do you remember Tia Mowry, that a couple of years ago she divorced her husband, and she was talking about that her divorce was a graduation and a celebration and what have you, and how she was going to level up? Well, I have some good news and I have some bad news for you. The good news is Tia Mowry has a new boyfriend. The bad news, he makes less money than she does. So much for leveling up. And that's been the mindset of some women, not all, some women, that they have to level up. In other words, they have to find a man that's 6 feet tall, has a six pack, and making at least a 6-figure or a 7-figure salary. Well, that describes basically 1% of the male population. And usually those people are in their 40s. Okay. Unless they're professional athletes like baseball players and football players and things of that nature. What these late don't realize that when you are part of that 1%, yep, surprise, surprise. When you're part of that 1%, guess what? They decide well, look, let me just say this. She would have been better off just staying with her husband. But you know what? If she's happy, whatever floats her boat. So, in any case, with everything being said, we're going to go to the main topic. Before I continue, let me just state for the record that the link to join the panel has been pinned. So, should anyone wishes to hit that link and opine regarding the topic at hand, they may do so. Okay? Let me make this perfectly clear. If I never seen you before, if I never heard from you before, guess what? You're gonna have to come up in the backstage, okay? And for a specific reason, to make sure that no one, and I repeat, no one tries to flash any pornographic images which will cause the people of YouTube to take down the stream. Once I determine that you're not going to do any of those shenanigans, I'll let you on the panel. Now I'm going to see if I can share my screen. I think okay. So what we're going to do is, first of all, we're going to define what is accountability. Okay. And it looks like it's taking a while for the image to load, so I'm not even going to, okay. So first of all, let's define what is accountability? Accountability is the obligation to take responsibility for actions, decisions, and outcomes, acting as a foundation for trust, growth, and productivity. It involves ownership, transparency, and answering for performance, which strengthens relationships, increases efficiency, and prevents the chaos, mistrust, and poor performance caused by lack of accountability. Okay, so to put it in its most basic terms, owning your own actions. That's what it means. Owning your own actions. Now, why am I even talking about it tonight? It's because we're living in a day and age where people are having a hard time taking accountability for their actions. Okay. Who love to for the actions that they've taken. Okay. Topic for tonight. Now, there are some principles when it comes to accountability. Okay. Key principles are accountability requires clear roles, transparent communication, and a framework for measuring performance and enforcing consequences, rewards, or sanctions. Because one thing we have to bear in mind that each action has an equal uh, consequence. Okay, in other words, if you do good things, you're gonna have good results. If you have do bad things, you're gonna have bad results. Okay. If you make errors in judgment, chances are the actions are not going to work out well. So let's discuss the types of accountability. The first one is personal accountability, which is owning your own actions and results. In other words, you're not blaming other people or circumstances for the actions that you have taken. You're going to own it and you're going to accept the consequences of your actions. I'm going to I'm going to give you an example so I can make it perfectly clear. On this platform, I am responsible for to making sure that this is an environment where people are allowed to express their views with mutual respect. And as the host, it is my responsibility to enforce the rules and guidelines of this channel. Which means if I have individuals either on the chat or on the panel that are being disrespectful or being inappropriate, it is my responsibility to take corrective action, which may mean muting them, which may mean removing them from the panel, which also may mean banning them from the platform, perhaps forever. Okay, because when everything is said and done, I am responsible for everything that goes on this platform. Now, I had recently removed myself, unsubscribed to two content creators because of their inability to take accountability for the actions that I've taken on their platforms. I'm not going to mention the names of the content creators, It is suffice to say that I will not continue to subscribe to a channel where the host is not taking responsibility for the actions of their guests. Now, the another type of accountability is called organizational accountability. That's answer for decisions and managing resources within a company, within an organization. Okay, and that usually held to people that are in positions of authority, people who make decisions regarding course of actions for their organizations. And of course, being someone that's in a position of authority, they have to take accountability for their actions, good or bad, and also take accountability of the consequences involved. Now, there's also public or ethical accountability, which means ensuring transparency and fairness in public roles. Now, let me explain what does that mean. Making sure that whatever decision that you're gonna make is gonna be clear, is gonna be transparent, and it's gonna be based on a moral compass. There's also levels of accountability ranging from resistance, avoidance to ownership, proactivity, taking responsibility. Okay? Now, again, we're living at a day and age where there are people that, for reasons unknown to many, maybe sometimes not even known to them, they don't take responsibility for their actions. What they do is they'll blame other people, or they'll blame circumstances, or they'll blame fate, or they'll blame God, or they'll blame the devil, or they blame karma, or what have you. But never examining, never examining for a moment that the action they have taken brings about consequences, positive or negative. Now, it does have an impact accountability when it comes to relationships. One of them is building trust. Consistently delivering on promises foster mutual respect and reliable relationships. In other words, keeping your word. If you say that you're going to do something, whatever it is. If for some reason, circumstances beyond your control is preventing you from doing what you state that you would do, be transparent and admit it, and admit why you are not able to achieve your objectives. Now, a negative consequence when it comes to, okay, now also another impact is resolving conflicts. Taking ownership of mistakes reduces blame and helps address harmful communication. Okay? Which brings me to, again, taking accountability. Owning up to your mistakes. Owning up to your lapse of judgment. Owning up to those situations where you did not succeed in what you're trying to do. Situations where you have to admit that despite your best efforts, you were not successful in what you are endeavoring to do. Now, there are some consequences regarding the lack of accountability. And there's three that I'm going to focus on briefly. Mistrust. People start relying on one another. When you are constantly not fulfilling what you say that you're going to do, it creates mistrust. Okay? And what it does, it sets a certain mindset, meaning that if you say that you're gonna do something and you're constantly not doing it and you're not owning up to it, it's going to create a negative image on you. It's going to create a negative image regarding your organization. And people, after a while, will practice the common sense and not rely on people that they can't trust. Another consequence of lack of accountability is poor performance. Productivity drops and goals are missed. Okay. So when you are not performing your functions well, what it does is goals and objectives are not met. And the other consequence of a lack of accountability is chaos. Unclear expectation leads to mistakes, broken trust, and toxic work cultures. No one likes to work in confusion. Okay, maybe rephrase that. No mature person wishes to function in chaos because when there is chaos, with mistakes occur, trust is damaged, and it creates a very toxic work environment. Okay. Now, let me just share with you the benefits regarding accountability. Okay. And here there's three, but there may be more. Increased success. Sharing goals and having check-ins significantly improve the likelihood of achieving results. In other words, what I mean is sharing with others what are your objectives, and then having regular reviews to see how you are progressing. Because if you have regular reviews and you are experiencing problems, you will be able to resolve the problems before it develops into something major. And by doing that, it increases the likelihood that you're going to succeed in your objectives. And by doing that, people are able to rely on you. You become reliable. You become dependable because you have accountability for yourself. Another benefit is personal growth. Encourages learning from mistakes and better decision making. Okay. Let me explain it to you in this fashion. When you are able to take a look at mistakes that you have made and you're able to learn from them, what that does is it better prepares you for similar situations. Okay, and also by increasing your preparation, what is the result is you're going to make more effective decisions. And making more effective this decision will bring about more effective outcomes. Accountability, accepting accountability, meaning, okay, I made a mistake. This is where I went wrong. I'm going to increase my focus to do better. And of course, they will lead to more productive decisions. And it will improve efficiency. High performing teams use it to eliminate surprises and increase productivity. Now, when it talks about surprises, it usually talk about negative surprises, okay, which could be unforeseen situations that occur due to lack of preparation. So, by taking a look and examining the situation and examining every aspect of a given situation, and proper assessment would lead you to take proper actions. The proper actions will lead to a positive effect. Improper actions will lead to a negative effect. So, let's see if anyone's watching. Okay. So now I'm going to stop share. Oops. So now it's, okay, just one moment. Now I'm going to stop sharing. Just bear with me for a moment. Okay. So also when it comes also taking accountability, it also requires a level of maturity that some people lack today. And I'm going to say some. Now, sometimes people tend to attribute that to the younger generations, okay? But I'm not going to do that because, believe me, there are some people in my generation, which is the baby boomer generation, which have issues at taking accountability. So it's not a generational thing. It's something that has to be ingrained with you. Okay? My mother, God rest her soul, among the many things that she taught me was, of course, not only take accountability regarding my actions, but also accepting the consequences of the actions which I have taken. Okay. Which is why I came up with the saying, when you mess up, fess up. In other words, don't try to blame your loved ones for the mistakes you made. Don't try to blame your coworkers for the lapse of judgment that you performed. Don't blame God for the poor choices that you made. In other words, own up to it. Own up to the mistakes that you made. Own up to the consequences which you have made. Try to learn from them So therefore, you will do better the next time. Okay, that's what it's called being an adult. It is called being mature. Okay, but we see it, and both as far as males and females. People like to talk about how women are unable to take accountability, but let's keep it 100. Men are just as guilty as women are. Okay, and there are many reasons why people have issues taking accountability. Some of them it could be they don't want to look bad. Others they create an image where they're perfect and that they never make a mistake. Okay, and of course we have a we have a saying in Spanish when people are always right, which is siempre tiene la razón, which is basically a loose translation. He's always right, even when he's wrong. He's right, and of course we all know the saying, customer is always right. Well, you know what? Customer is not always right. Many times the customer is wrong because they're basing everything on a false an assumption or false expectations. Another thing when it comes to with dealing with accountability is having realistic expectations on who you are, realistic expectations regarding um, what you hope for, realistic expectations regarding what you expect. Because if you have realistic expectations and you try your best, chances are more often than not you're going to succeed. And if you don't succeed, you're going to own up for it. That's what taking accountability is taking accountability for your actions or lack of action, taking accountability for exercises in judgment or the lack of judgment. Um, it also means dealing with the consequences of your actions, positive or negative. And sometimes, in all fairness, the consequences can be heavy, or the consequences can be dramatic, or the consequences could be seriously uh, negative. Okay? If you smoke cigarettes nonstop from your teenage years, it's going to affect your lungs. If you eat food to excess, you're going to gain weight, and then when you develop multiple issues with your heart, you might develop diabetes or other medical issues because these are negative actions, negative consequences. Now, can a person who lacked accountability begin to get a sense of accountability? Yes, they can. However, the individual must be willing to accept that when it comes to um, accountability, they lack it. And that's the hard part for some people. particularly if no one had ever challenged them, particularly if no one have ever um, hold a mirror to them for them to take accountability for their actions. In fact, I saw this one video um, that was made through ANI regarding, I think it was a husband and wife, where the wife was never able to take accountability for her actions, always blaming her husband again and again and again, and then finally um, the husband had enough and ended the marriage, and the woman had a hard time accepting accountability, but her case was so severe that even her friends was telling her that she had issues taking accountability. Okay, she finally learned to take accountability for her actions. Unfortunately, the consequences regarding her inability to take accountability for their actions ended with the dissolution of their marriage. Why? Because the wife or the woman couldn't take accountability for their actions. And in all fairness, men do the same. There are men that never taken accountability for the actions they've taken, and it got to the point where when the wife had enough and ended the divorce. And sometimes people learn eventually, and other times people never learned to take accountability. So, if you want to have a more productive life, if you want to have a life that's not as stressful, do yourself a favor. Learn to take accountability for your actions. And be mindful. Sometimes those consequences may be major. In the case of the woman, she found out, she learned to take accountability, but it was too late because the husband had enough. Do yourself a favor. Learn to take accountability for your actions, because eventually it's going to get to the point where you're going to drive people away, and people will not want to deal with someone who's unable of taking accountability for their actions. Now, I have said everything I needed to say. I don't know if anyone is wishes to join the panel. If not, I'm just going to wrap it up, because I've said basically what I needed to be said. Now, I will be live on my other channel on Thursday night at 8:30 p.m. I will have an interesting topic. I will do a posting on it. If not tomorrow, on my community wall tomorrow, but on Thursday definitely. Good evening, April Showers. Thank you very much for stopping by. And let me just tell everybody that my friend April Showers also has her YouTube channel where she discusses a lot of interesting topics. So I'm going to ask that you show some love. Check out her content and subscribe. So, April, I was talking about what is accountability. So what I did was I defined what it is and the reason why I was discussing it, because we're living in a day and age where people are not taking accountability for their actions, but what they do is they blame other people. They blame their spouses, they blame their friends, they blame God, they blame the devil, they blame fate, they blame karma. Everyone and everything other than themselves and other than the fact that their actions produce the consequences of which they receive. Okay. So I don't know, April, if you want to. Okay, if you know if no one wishes to join the panel, um, I will call it a night. So I just want, like I said, I wanted to share with you my views when it comes to accountability, and I hope that you benefit by the information that I shared. Okay, so and of course, again, if you have not done so, please consider subscribing to my channel. Make sure that you set the bell notifications to all, so therefore, whenever I do produce content, you have the opportunity to catch it live or catch it on the playback. And of course, the playback gang, you're more than welcome to enter whatever comments that you wish. Just make sure that the comments are respectable. Okay, we can disagree, but let's agree. Let's be agreeable when we disagree. Because any disrespectful comments, they will be blocked. They'll be deleted, and you will be blocked access to this channel. And believe it or not, it is a privilege to be on this platform. Yes, and I love some April showers as well. Okay, so I hope you're doing well tonight. Okay, so of course, we're gonna close the same way that we always close. We must do everything possible to avoid the presence of the mentally and intellectually challenged, because if we fail to do so, we will be infected by the stupidity and massive insanity. And of course, whatever we say to do, we should do to the glory of God. Now, the next time I'll be live on my main channel, on this channel, will be Friday night at 10 p.m., which I will have my usual episode of open discussion, where I will share my views regarding several topics, and then the audience will have an opportunity to opine regarding any topic which I will cover. Also, the audience, if they wish, they can suggest topics for me to cover, and I will do my best to comply. If it's something where I do not have a great deal of knowledge, I will be transparent and state so. And of course, there's some topics that, right, truthfully, I prefer not to cover, because some people just don't know how to interact with these topics without getting emotional. So, with that being said, I thank you very much for your time. I thank you very much for your patience. I thank you very much for your indulgence. And most of all, I thank all of you for all the support that I have received. I'm getting close to 2,400 subs. So please spread the word regarding this channel. And if you wish to listen to content where people speak with common sense, check out Uncommon Sense with Jose Negro. With that being said, I wish all of you good night, stay blessed, and peace.